welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 199 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 55 of A Storm of Swords, that's Jon 7.
Oh goodness, we're getting close. 199. Wow. Anyway, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide you with some additional information about the characters and geography in this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm all right. How about you?
I'm well. I mustn't grumble.
All right. Well, that's good.
We're in a 4-day week for the second week in a row, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah, well, last week I took off Monday, had the 4th on Tuesday, so I had a 3-day week.
Even
So
better.
I was in a meeting today, and someone asked if I had done something, and I was like, quite honestly, with a 4-day week, 3-day week followed by a 4-day week, I really can't remember if I had done that or not. I'll have to get back to you.
You sound like me.
Yes. So yeah, it was a we had a 4-day week. We had just a company holiday this past Monday, and I spent it helping Ethan move out of his apartment, and that was quite the effort. We kept telling him, he's just in a studio apartment. It's like less than 600 square feet or somewhere around that. And we kept telling him, we were just down there, Stacy and I, a few weeks ago, and we were like, this might not look like much, but when you start packing, you're going to realize that it is a lot more than you're anticipating. But being an early 20-something that he is, he did not heed his parents' advice. And Stacy said, when you get down there, send me a thumbs up if you're impressed by the level work he's done before you arrived, and a thumbs down if you were not impressed. Can you guess which way my thumb went?
2 thumbs way down.
It was. The one thing he did do was he had a friend there to help us, which I was not anticipating. So that is something, at least.
I guess so, yeah.
But it was 2 long days. I got down there Sunday and we left Monday afternoon. And
Was he just moving within his city, or was he changing cities, or?
So he's been caught in this terrible timing issue so he's expecting to receive an offer from a company out of state for a job. But his lease ends today. So if he signed another lease, then, he would just have to forget about this other job that he's expecting an offer from. But he didn't get the offer yet, so he can't just move to that city. So right, so we had to put all his stuff in storage, and then most of the big items like his bed, his couch, his TV, all that kind of stuff went into storage in just like a mile from his apartment, and then all the stuff that wouldn't fit in the storage unit had to come home with us. So. And now we've got to undo it all whenever he decides, if he gets the offer and he decides what he's going to do about it. So all that for a very short-term situation.
Yeah.
But I will say, my little old van, I was nervous what I was asking her to do. I knew it was a lot for my 15-year-old 200,000-mile van, but I asked her to drive 2.5 hours, load her up with all manner of stuff, and drive 2.5 hours back. And I gotta say, I was nervous the whole time. I just kept thinking, okay, if I can get to we have AAA, which is like you call them and they help tow your car places or whatever, if you, for those who don't know what AAA is. I thought if I can just get within my AAA towing distance back to the house, then I could just have her towed back to some sort of repair shop around the house. But she made it. When I pulled in and put that car in park, I was so proud of her.
Yeah. You patted her down like a
I
a faithful old stallion.
Exactly, I sure did.
So, my story it's not really very interesting. But I played soccer against a lady who is a former Portuguese national player.
Oh, cool.
It was very exciting for me. I've often wondered about pitting my skills against the best of the female soccer world, and
Right.
she was distinctly better than me, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Was she younger than you or about the same
She
age?
was younger than me, but she's retired from international soccer, so she's.
Okay.
There's quite a big gap actually between me and the retirement age from top level soccer, sadly. So I'm not exactly outing her age there. There's about 20 years she could fall into.
Well, that's pretty neat. How did this encounter come about?
She friend of a friend. We were having our team practice, and she came along and played with us, and she was very good. I Yeah, I mean she scored a terrific goal. I mean, really good. Kind of kind
Awesome.
of goal that I would theoretically rave about if I ever scored. But
Right. You'd come on here and tell me all about it in very
hmm hmm
specific detail.
yeah, I did score, but I also missed an absolute sitter. I mean, just like
Oh,
shockingly bad miss. The kind
right.
of thing that would have made a former Portuguese national player burst out laughing.
Is that what happened?
I can vouch for this. Yes.
You know firsthand that's the response you'd get from Oh man. Well, you know, so it
That
happens
was
sometimes.
that was a real thrill, and I have to say, sort of like generally speaking, sort of uh, female soccer went up in my estimation. I've played with plenty of very good female soccer players, but I've never played with one who played at that kind of level before, and she was really very special.
Awesome. I got I got a text today from a staff sergeant uh, that I didn't know. It's not like I knew this person. It just came out of the blue. A staff sergeant in the Marines wanting to reach out to Molly about a career in the Marines, and I was like, I'm not sure you've met. Really, sounds like you've not met my princess.
You know that I've always felt that the sort of like with university admissions and sort of like military admissions, there is a constant sort of like degradation of the bar for getting to that point, and I think that would be the final straw for the Marines, honestly.
Right when they take Molly, they're I can't even get her out of bed before. No, she actually works pretty hard, but I really can't imagine her out there in the field
He's the one
with
that
the
Richard Gere has to push over the wall.
right. Yes, yes.
Yeah. That reminded me of something. So we also had a communication from a listener, Anton from Austria,
Yeah,
and he listened to one of our episodes where we talked about. I don't remember exactly what the subject was, but it was about.
this is our 50th episode
Oh, it was our 50th episode,
live
and it
video
was
thing.
was it movies we recommend or something like that?
Yes, I think it was our favorite movies or something along those lines.
I don't know why I mentioned this movie, and now I'm very worried about Anton because if he watches this movie, it is a scarring movie to watch. It really is.
I can't remember what you said about it at the time. I remember that all my movies were like, like action movies like Jurassic Park and such. Yours were all, like deep, serious type
Yeah.
movies, like indie films and such.
The one that Anton was asking about, which because of my poor diction, he did not understand what I was saying. Because the problem with the movie title is that it's often sort of out of context. So if you're not a native speaker, you've got to hear the words to understand it. And the movie was called Dear Zachary. But
Right.
when I speak at my normal pace, that becomes Dear Zachary, and he had
The
no idea
Zachary.
what this word was.
That's
So it
what he
was
put.
Dear
It sounded like the Zachary.
Zachary, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd love to hear what Anton thinks of that movie because my brother tells me now that he recommended that movie to me because he wanted to make me unhappy. He wanted to
Oh, that's a
see my
brotherly love
reaction.
right there.
But
Yes.
it is a movie that has stuck with me forever. I told you before about it. It's the most. You've read Franz Kafka. Okay, let me restart that. You've heard of Franz Kafka.
I have, yes, yes.
So you know he was sort of notorious for sort of building these awful situations for people to be in. Yeah.
Right, 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 right.
This movie is the real life coming together of a Kafkaesque situation.
Oh, okay.
What these
Well,
people live through is
it
really
sounds
terrible.
like Anton is about 149 episodes behind us.
Yeah.
So
He'll
when he
never
gets
know.
here,
When he gets here, he'll be like, "What the? That's me
why
they're
didn't
talking
you
about."
say that then?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm scarred for life now.
I am scarred for life. But the key to that movie is to not read any spoilers. You have to not read any spoilers because it is. I mean, first of all, if you read the spoilers, you would not watch the movie.
Oh, okay. That is a really a deep recommendation of that movie. Like how do you take that that
Am I not interesting you though? Am I not tantalizing you? Are you not now
yes,
curious? Yeah,
but I'm also
exactly. So
terrified.
yes,
I
as you should be. That's the right place to be.
curious
I
and
think you should
terrified.
take that as homework, Mackelly. I think you should watch that before the next episode
Oh
and
boy.
report back to listeners how scarred you are.
I'm not sure I can do that before our next episode. We got a lot of prep work for our
But yeah,
next
we do have a
episode.
lot of prep work for that
Maybe the one
big
after that.
200.
Yes. The
Yeah.
200.
All right, well, so let's get down to business with this one. How do we leave? It's Jon Snow. Jon Snow. Last we saw of Jon, he was returning to Castle Black, having escaped Ygritte and Styr's raiding party. He'd warned the residents of Town, including their finest haberdashers, to make like a banana and split before the wildlings arrive. He got physically patched up by Maester Aemon, but then psychologically torn apart again by the news of that most of the Great Ranging, including Sam, had not made it home. Winterfell was burned, and his brothers Rickon and Bran were dead. And
Mm.
we're out of cashy raisin crisp for breakfast.
Right.
Uh, this was all confusing news to Jon because he was pretty sure it was Bran's direwolf that saved him at Queen's Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Jon and his brothers wake to the smell of Town burning. After being aided in dressing by Clytus and drinking some dream wine for his leg pain, he pleads his case to Donal Noy that he's in good enough shape to fight. Noy is skeptical, but needing every warm body he can find, he agrees to put Jon on the king's tower armed with a longbow.
Jon knows that the Magnar and his Thenns are coming, but Ygritte and other free folk he's gotten to know are also coming with him. He'd managed to keep most of the free folk at a distance to prevent developing a friendship, but not Ygritte. He wishes she'd go south or hide in one of the towers she was so fond of, but he knows better.
The castle is guarded by men in black cloaks, visible on the rooftops. However, 9 out of every 10 were straw men garbed in cloaks, an illusion cooked up by Maester Aemon to give the appearance of a larger garrison than they actually have. Up on the King's Tower, Jon has 6 scarecrows, along with 2 of his brothers, Deaf Dick Follard and a new brother named Satin.
The Night's Watch castles were designed with no walls aside from the wall, so defending Castle Black will be a challenge. Noy has a plan though. They will abandon the buildings and build a barricade around the two things that really matter: the gate through the wall and the foot of the stairs leading to the top of the wall.
The barricade is a hodgepodge of casks of nails, barrels of mutton, logs, sacks of grain, and other sundry items. All those who can't fight will be taken to the top of the wall, along with food stores and other important items. Many a Molestown resident has been put to work, armed with a weapon, building the barricade, or helping tend to fires and food preparation.
As John surveys the scene, he's reminded that the brothers Bowen Marsh left behind when he went off to chase Mance and his wildlings across the wall are old, sick, or green. John knows Aemon sent birds to kings and lords alike, 2 birds to the northern lords, but as it was nearly go time, no help was coming for this fight. John notices that some brothers still treat him warily, thinking him a turncloak. He doesn't blame them. He's made as many friends as enemies within the Night's Watch.
The wildlings attack in the night. Jon helps Satin with some final reminders, and the pair, along with Deaf Dick, begin firing on targets below. Jon recognizes the wildling Big Boil, but wants a shot at the Magnar.
When the armory goes up in flames, Deaf Dick jumps onto a crenel to shoot at the man with the torch. He misses, but the wildling below doesn't. Dick falls 100 feet to his death. As Jon peers down at Dick's body, he sees a mop of thick red hair. Jon aims at, but can't fire on Ygritte.
Several buildings were burning now, and the Thenns were at the barricade protecting the gate and the stairs. Brothers and villagers were atop the barricade defending it. Jon and Satin, along with many of the Night's Watch archers, rained arrows on the Thenns at the makeshift wall. However, the situation was deteriorating. Jon saw Rast take a spear through his gut. First the villagers ran, then the brothers followed. Those that stayed died.
The gate was lost. It was chained and barred, but undefended. The battle moves to the steps. However, the 70 Thenns pounding up the stairs were too much for the men defending it. The defenders fled up the stairs, and the wildlings followed. Jon sees Styr gesturing at the undefended gate, but Jon knew it was too late for him and his men.
A horn blew from the 9th landing of the stairs where Noi was stationed. Jon and the archers began lobbing fire arrows into a cache of flammables stacked under the first landing. Higher up the stairs, flames bloomed as well. Noi had drenched the stairs between the 7th and 9th landing with oil.
With flames above and below, the Thenns were trapped. The heat of the fire caused a multi-ton section of the wall to break off and crush the stairs below. The Thenns and their Magnar along with it. Jon asks Satin for help. He needs to go down and look for someone.
Jon found Ygritte with an arrow in her chest. She opened her eyes when he knelt beside her. She asked if this was a true castle. She wanted to see one before she died. Jon told her the battle was over. Maester Aemon will patch her up and she'll see 100 castles. Ygritte cupped his cheek and told Jon that he knows nothing as she died.
Yeah, so sad. Ygritte was a good character.
Yes, that
she will be missed.
She will indeed.
Remember the days when you used to give a eulogy for everyone who died?
Do you know, I just saw an article about I can't think of the author. Some author that had lunch with George Martin. And she was saying that Martin told her at that lunch that one of the issues he's having with finishing Winds of Winter is that he's killed off some characters that he realizes he kind of needed to move the plot forward, something along those lines. So maybe Ygritte was one of them. I don't know.
Mazdur on the scene. Bring them all back.
Right. Yes. So, but yeah, I was thinking about it. This is the first in-person battle we've had since Tyrion in the Battle of the Blackwater at the end of the Clash of Kings. I guess.
But as you've said before, Storm of Swords isn't that swordy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, really isn't. Yeah, I mean, technically, Arya was watching the Brotherhood Without Banners fight the Brave Companions at that sept.
True.
And we saw some fighting outside Riverrun through Arya as well after the wedding and the massacre at the wedding. But they're not quite the same level as this. This is something it's like the Battle of Blackwater. We've been knowing it was coming for a while and kind of building toward it.
Yeah. Although the sheer scale of this is so much smaller than the Blackwater, but it's kind of like, it's a key point in the whole story that, whether or not the Night's Watch can hold Castle Black here. Because, I mean, essentially they did. They succeeded here at some cost. I mean, they certainly, people died, and they're going to have quite the rebuild, because this might creep into my pedantry afterwards, but when you set fire to a wooden set of stairs between the 7th and 9th floors, it's going to go upwards too.
I had that same thought. They put ice. They chipped off a bunch of ice on the 10th landing to keep it all wet.
Maybe that's a good. Yeah, so it sort of put itself out as it climbed up. Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. I did wonder actually if it might be better to have like guys with saws and cut it away.
Yeah, I guess the problem with starting at the 9th is that's a ways up there. It's going to take a while to get those people back down again.
Right,
unless the winch.
They've got the winch, exactly. The winch can still be used. And I did wonder. Well, we'll get to it. I'll mention it in pedantry. But you made the point. Actually, I'm stealing your notes here. That the whole chapter is in two distinct halves. There's the pre-battle, which a lot of it is sort of like how Jon's recovering from his injury, what he's thinking about what's to come, worried about Ygritte, worried about the Molestown people who've influxed to Castle Black. And then the battle itself, which is It's quite dynamic. I'd forgotten how dynamic this was. One thing that kind of like trips me up when I'm reading the John chapters at the moment is how large Ygritte and Stier's raiding party is, because I'm always interjecting with watching the TV show, and in the TV show it was the handful of people. It's like six or
Oh,
seven people,
yes.
and so I keep forgetting that this is like 200 guys, sort of.
I think it's like
Yeah,
120. Yeah,
120 guys.
it's
Yeah, so uh, I, I, once the battle started, I began to go, oh yeah, there's quite a lot of these. I mean, just the named
yes.
ones, those
Right.
tenant named ones.
Yeah, the pre-battle, you can feel the anticipation and fear of the coming battle building,
Yeah,
you know, because it's like halfway through the chapter that it switches.
yeah,
They attack about halfway through. And you can see the Night's Watch brothers, and as they call them in this chapter, the moles, which is I thought was a pretty good name
hmm
for people from Molestown, trying to keep their cool, going about their business, eating, trying to eat, even though their stomachs are in knots, probably because of fear, and all the while the tension and apprehension is mounting toward this inevitable attack that they know is coming.
Mm. And Dick and Satin are both good characters for this, because they give you the sort of like the two strands of what a
Right.
Night's Watch person would be like. There's Satin, who's as green as fresh grass, terrified, pees himself as the horns sound. And
Right.
then there's Dick, who is a wily old pro and profoundly deaf, who would
Yes.
sleep through the whole thing if they didn't nudge him. He's so
He
relaxed
was
about it.
sleeping. Yeah, that was something. He was sleeping while they were waiting for all this to happen. But it's just, yeah, you're right. They're two very opposite type of brothers here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Um, I'd forgotten this, that John warned the citizens of Molestown. I'd forgotten that he even did that. So he saved a lot of lives by doing that. Even in his
Right.
fevered, injured state, he managed to he thought about that and saved a lot of lives. Although I do wonder, actually, if Molestown had been fully occupied, if the raiding party might have circled around it rather than attacking it.
In chancing, yeah, they would eventually probably
They
win,
would
but
certainly
they would lose
win,
people.
right?
Yeah.
But just that many people would just slow them down a little bit, perhaps.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at least the ones that were taken to the top of the wall were pretty safe.
Well, as
But
long
yeah,
as the
you're right.
Night's Watch wins.
Right. Yes. If they lose, yeah, they're going to be in trouble no matter what, I guess. But I wondered if the wildlings hadn't stopped at Molestown for some looting and some raping, would they have been successful? Because we wake to the fire, to the town burning, but the Night's Watch is still in the process of setting up. There's Donald
Yeah,
Noy is still yelling at people to build the barricade and stuff.
yeah.
So,
There's quite a distance to Molestown, right? It's not like 20 minutes away. It's several hours, I think, isn't it?
uh, it's definitely not just down the road,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure quite what the distance
yeah.
is off the top of my head.
So he does
But
mention that not everyone fled Molestown, but Molestown is partially underground, so it is possible that there will be survivors. It might not be a complete loss there.
right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's mostly underground. So if they wanted to root out everyone, they would have to go
Yeah.
spelunking down
Right.
into the
Right.
depths. So,
Yeah.
and then they're really getting off task,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
you know.
But it's
But,
well,
yeah,
it's a sign of what's become of the Night's Watch, that the influx of Norristown residents who are not soldiers is such a boon to the defense of Castle Black. It really should not be, but it really is.
right.
They've got
Yeah.
the equipment and materiel to make to arm these people, but they didn't have the people to carry those swords until this influx of people. So it
Right.
is a sign of how lowly the Night's Watch has become.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they didn't even have 50 men or 25 horses at Castle Black at that time. So, I
Mm.
mean, they're seriously outnumbered in this battle. against the Thenns and the wildlings. You know, we do get so later in the chapter we discover what their ace in their sleeve was. You know, with the plan on the stairs with the fire.
Yeah.
You know, trapping them in each side. We get a little bit of hints to the surprise, to that particular surprise, before the battle, when Jon is kind of watching things happening and listening to things happening. Like, you know, the first time you read through the chapter and he's talking about Rast raking leaves under the stairs, you know, you're like, well, this is an odd time for some yard work, you know?
It's Rast. You want to keep him out of trouble.
Right. Go rake some leaves. But then, you know, Donald Noy is shouting at the moles, and he's, you know, telling him the pitch goes to the hoist, and the oil goes up the steps, and the crossbow bolts are on, you know, the fourth to sixth landing spears to the first and second. The lard goes under the stairs, and, you know, at first it just doesn't make, you know, you're not really paying attention. But then when you see at the end of the chapter what happened, you're like, oh, that's why the lard was under the stairs and the oil was up the steps and all that stuff. So.
I have a question for you. Jon mentions that if they had the riders, they could go out and meet this raiding party in the field rather than at essentially undefended on the southern side, Castle Black. Do you think that's a better or worse idea? I mean, it's not completely undefended. There are palisade walls, there are towers, there are defendable positions. I wonder if it would be the right decision, because I'll mention why I'm asking this question. The TV show, the party that comes and attacks Castle Black kills a child's parents and sends the child to Castle Black to tell them that they're coming, trying to lure the Night's Watch out into a battle in the open.
Oh, yes.
And the burning of Molestown, as you said, seems kind of like a waste of time, but maybe that's what these wildlings were doing too.
Oh, that could be. That very well could be. Sure. Yeah, I could see that. Right. I think if they had horses, if they had 50 mounted seasoned Night's Watch brothers, I think it would be a better situation.
Yeah.
But as they don't have enough horses or even 50 men, I don't know that it would have been a better outcome.
You have to say, I think the Mance's army is definitely vulnerable to 50 mounted, armed and trained Night's Watch brothers. This smaller raiding party might actually be able to disperse and get away from that and actually sort of pick them off. It would be an interesting battle if that's how it had gone down.
Sure. Yeah, that would have been. They just need the horses. They don't even have enough horses, which just shows you just how depleted the whole situation. I mean, Mance's plan to spread the Night's Watch thin by feigning attacks randomly across the wall. You see, it wasn't a bad idea. It almost worked here.
But sending Jon Snow across the wall with the raiding party was a bad idea.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I was trying to think of something else to say, but yeah, I mean, when he chose to do that, when Mance chose to send him on this mission, he had just questioned whether he was legitimately, a crow that had flown down off the wall or not, and then he sends him back home. You know,
it's rather like the way James Bond villains try to kill James Bond.
In elaborate situations,
elaborate and overly complicated with a fatal flaw in it. You know,
right? Yes, I see the comparison. Speaking of Jon and his trip over the wall, do you think that possibly his injury here might have saved his life?
Well, yes, good point, because he would have been down in the thick of it had he not been injured. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it seems that pretty much everyone who was fighting on the ground died.
Yes, they were just getting bowled over by the larger number of things.
And anyone who perhaps did survive got washed away by the tons of ice that suddenly fell when the wall melted.
Right. Yeah. That was exactly my thought. Is he'd be down be down there with sword in hand, and
Yeah.
whereas instead he was on his high perch, a detached role, which for our purposes gave us a great vantage point for the POV chapter.
Yeah, good points. Good points all. I really like the tactic of the scarecrows with the Night's Watch clothes. I will say,
Sure,
if this
yeah.
happens again, message to the Night's Watch: the local haberdashery has black cloaks for sale, and also we may be having a possible fire sale. So.
We just might. Literally a fire sale. We learn we will learn here shortly in background that this is not the first time that a large group of wildlings has made it to the south side of the wall. We've actually talked about it a few times. The difference here, though, is that there's no Stark in Winterfell to ride against them.
Right.
Every time we've heard about a party of wildlings making it onto the southern side of the wall, the Starks have gathered up a force and rode to end the threat. But here, both the danger and the stakes are elevated because there is no Stark in Winterfell to
That's a good point.
help them out,
That
to
is a
be a
good point.
safety.
So Jon, of course, prays that Ygritte doesn't come as part of this raiding party. These prayers fell on deaf ears. Relo,
Yeah.
that's the one to go with.
Right. Prayed to the wrong
Throw a
god.
leech on the fire and tell her not to come, and maybe she won't come. But he correctly surmises that she'll definitely be there. Probably she was going to be there anyway, but she's going to be hell bent on revenge on Jon Snow because her standing in the wildling raiding party will be at an all-time low, courtesy of his desertion.
Oh, right. Yes. I wondered, we didn't even know if she was going to survive. He
Right.
wondered if she would be killed because of
Yeah.
his
Be
treacherous
be kind of funny if
behavior.
they got to Molestown and she said something like, "You know what? I know I'm to blame for all this, but I'm just going to stay here and watch you fight."
Yeah. You go on without
Yeah.
me. So yeah, you alluded to it a little bit earlier that we hear the names of several new Night's Watch brothers that Jon had that we weren't aware of, but we meet one of them who's a brand new brother of the Night's Watch named Satin, who was raised in a brothel in Old Town, and yeah, he's I gotta say, I felt like he handled himself pretty well under the
Yeah.
circumstances.
I mean, if you ignore his bladder malfunction, he does a good job. Yeah. I mean,
Right. Yeah, he didn't panic too
no,
badly,
he
aside from
picked his
the
shots
beginning
and
there.
fired. I mean, honestly, I would not want to be in any kind of battle situation, but being up a tower with a crossbow, yeah, that's better than most things. I could take a
Sure.
beat, aim, and fire, and then reload.
Yeah. I guess if I had to choose between on the ground with the sword or up in a tower with a
Yeah.
crossbow, I would choose the latter. But he followed orders
Yeah.
well from Jon, and he reacted quickly to the threat from the door that they weren't expecting to come opening behind them with wildlings trying to make their way
Right.
through
Yeah.
it. So all in all, I gave him a passing grade for his first
Yeah.
battle, and especially under such
I would too.
circumstances.
So John mentions that some of his brothers think he's a turncloak and he can't really blame them. And it's pretty rough on John because, he did what he was ordered to
Yeah,
do. But it is also partly true. I mean,
right.
he did basically break his vows and fall in love with a wildling girl, and he didn't have to do that bit.
Didn't have
No.
to. but Corin said do whatever it takes to earn their
Yeah.
trust. That's what he kept
He,
falling
yeah, he
back on.
followed the spirit and the letter of that particular command.
Yeah. You know, if he was a turncloak though, would he ride here, warn them, help them prepare for battle?
Yeah. I mean, that of course is the trump card in the argument for John. The flip side, of course, is he could have been like, quick head count here tells me they're gonna lose. I'm gonna switch back.
I guess
Mm,
so. Yeah, cynical brothers might take that
mm.
approach. Maybe they feared that he was gonna turn when the fighting started, though,
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
And he mentions that he's made as many friends as enemies in the Night's Watch. So probably those with a grudge against him, like Rast. I could see those kind of brothers spreading
Yeah.
rumors, fueling negative sentiment about
Yeah, it's
Jon.
not the end of the world that Rast met his maker.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't one of the nicer
No,
brothers,
no,
that's
indeed.
for sure.
You mentioned Donald Noy yelling the commands, and John remembers that Ned had him and his brothers practice being loud because it's a really good point, actually. In a battle, if you
Right.
want to get your orders across, doesn't matter how tactically brilliant you are, nobody can hear you. So they actually practice yelling across the
Right.
walls of Winterfell, which is I do wonder actually. I mean, presumably yelling is like anything else. If you can develop you can get better at it. But I've never
That's a
heard of
good
anyone
question.
getting
Yeah,
louder by practice.
practicing being
Yeah,
loud. Yeah, that's true. I wondered that same thing when I read it. Can you make yourself louder? I don't know. Maybe you'd think it'd just be genetics how much power your voice has behind it. But
we.
maybe if you
I
start
will
early
say
enough.
actually. I mean, you probably know this. My wife is extremely quiet. She has a very soft.
I do
You
know
do know
this.
this. This is not just like a yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Right.
She can be loud. When raised to anger, she can be loud. She can shout at you, but she does not like to do it, and it makes her she regrets doing it. I think physically she regrets doing
uh,
it. So maybe that's one thing. If she were practicing to be the Lord of Winterfell, she might, or rather, to be commander in a battle, she might practice to
right.
build up a sort of stamina for it that she doesn't currently have because she doesn't do it very often.
I see. Yes, I could see that. Certainly, I could see that. You know, I was thinking when I read this bit, about them practicing being lords by shouting across the Winterfell from different towers. If somewhere deep down, maybe Jon used to dream of being a lord someday, despite knowing his parentage and its limitations, or maybe he's just that good of a brother to Robb to help Robb
Yeah,
practice, knowing it'll never be Jon.
yeah. Maybe everything he was shouting was, "Why don't you jump?" uh,
Yeah, it also I went down a rabbit hole with this. I started thinking about how different Rob's story might have been if Cat hadn't talked to Cat hadn't talked Ned into letting Jon go to the Night's Watch instead of Jon being by Rob's side
yeah,
like Ned wanted.
yeah,
You know, him being by Rob's side when the war broke out, you know, Jon would have been his right hand person instead of Theon. And it does seem that Jon was getting pretty good. Not Jon. It does seem that Robb was getting pretty good counsel from his lords. But having your best friend and your brother by your side is a different level of intimacy and
yeah.
trust.
And plus, basically at all turns, John's proven himself to be wise and capable. I mean, I say that, but several times I've pointed out that he's often been rash and impetuous and had a older person set him straight,
True. Yes.
but generally a lot better than Theon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wondered if even maybe Jon might have been able to talk Robb out of marrying Jane
Right.
as sort of
Yeah, if he
brother to
was with
brother.
him then. Yeah.
Yeah, Dad would not want you to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because John
So
is very much closer to the same cloth as Ned than Rob is.
right.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also, I think John always had a suspicion of Theon as well. So I think he would have joined the chorus with Cat to say, "Don't do this."
Right. Yes. Yes. He mentioned. I think he mentioned in this chapter he didn't care much for Theon.
Yes,
We've
exactly.
known this for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. Um, what's the name of the Night's Watch brother who brings them dinner? Do you remember?
Oh, Owen the Oaf.
Owen, yes, who fell on his head as a child, and he's a little dim-witted. And John reiterates to him that the ravens have been sent, and the kings and lords might come and help them. And the guy's very excited to meet King Robert because, and
Yeah.
John doesn't want
Seems
to.
like a sweet guy,
Yeah,
Owen.
yeah, sweet and gentle, and John doesn't disabuse him of the idea. But John
Right.
deeply knows that no help is coming. That as he says, the ravens have wings, but the armies don't.
Right. And, you know, John tells us that Aemon sent the ravens to the kings and to the lords, but Tywin in that Tyrion chapter said it was Bowen Marsh. So maybe it was signed by Bowen Marsh, but John, being on the inside, knows who crafted the
Or
letters,
maybe the
and
other way
Tywin
round.
isn't aware.
Aemon wrote it at the behest of Bowen Marsh.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that could be
Yeah.
that very well might be it. Yeah. And I wondered, did he, you know, it said to the five kings, or maybe it was four kings. Renly might have been dead by then. I can't remember. But I wonder, did he really bother to send one to the Ironborn, to Balon Greyjoy? It just seems unlikely they'd ride to the rescue of the Night's Watch.
Well, the way to pitch that, of course, is first of all, don't put all four kings' names on that letter.
Step one, right?
Secondly, say, you know, as the Lord of Winterfell, you have a particular
Oh,
duty, Yeah,
yes.
you see?
Yes. I did think possibly if they're invading the north, maybe they figure it would be good to have the Night's Watch indebted to them on their
Right,
side.
right,
So, and Cotter Pike, who was the commander of Eastwatch, is Ironborn.
right.
So,
Yeah,
there's something there, I guess. But he thinks that he and John and Maester Aemon think that the Northern Lords offered the best hope, which just shows how out of touch they are with
right,
the
right.
developments. Because Gren did tell John about Theon sacking Winterfell and Ramsay saving the day, which of course we know is not how that happened.
You're right.
But so maybe they think that Ramsay might ride to their aid. But many of the houses mentioned that John rattles off are not in position to help Deepwood Mott, Castle Serwyn, Torrance Square. That none of those people, none of those places have even lords at this moment,
Yeah,
let alone are able to ride off. I was thinking possibly their best bet would have been the Northern Mountain clans.
right, right.
They weren't as invested in Robb's war, and they also might be some of the first people who are impacted by the
Mhm.
wildling raiders.
Yes.
So, they might have come help, I guess.
Yeah. Um. So, Deaf Dick Follard is killed by Ygritte. We knew she was handy with a bow and arrow, but that's a heck of a shot. He he basically missed her from up on high, and she got him from the ground through the crenellation. So
Yeah.
that's a terrific shot. Uh,
Yeah, and I wondered. I mean, it seems she's pretty skilled with a bow and arrow.
why is John still
So
alive?
yeah, I'm
Hmm.
thinking she was not. She was either trying to kill that horse
Hmm.
or just trying to put an arrow in John
Hmm.
to slow him down. Because if she wanted him dead, I think he probably would have been dead.
So my big question about this whole chapter is: does the tunnel through the wall have any more protection than the gate at either end? Some kind of block the tunnel failsafe? I mean, it seems not because this was never mentioned, and basically they've in this chapter they chained it down the gate on this side and threw away the key,
Right.
swallowed it.
Right.
uh,
They hit it on the 10th landing.
right. And the same goes for the stairs. I mean, like obviously Donald Noy came up with a plan for cutting off the stairs, but uh, it does seems like an ability to sort of cut away the last two or three levels of the stairs would be salvageable, but a serious impediment to anyone who's just invaded.
Right. True. Yeah. I was wondering about all this, whether the leaving the gate undefended was an intentional move by Donald Noy, because John remembers Ned telling him, and Rob probably, that fleeing men get the blood up of the advancing army.
Right.
So did they intentionally retreat to the stairs to get the Thenns to follow and focus on, don't look over there where there's an undefended gate. Focus on us over here at the stairs.
The thing
Come
is,
this way.
the thing is, they couldn't really do anything with the gate. I mean, they had to win this battle to do anything with the gate, right? Because they'd have to hack their way through these chains to lift the gate on the southern side. Then there's a tunnel through the wall to the northern side, which also has a gate, which they would have to open. So it's not like this is an immediate thing that could happen mid-battle.
Right, like capture the flag. Like we
Right.
touched the gate, we won.
Exactly. We win. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if they had a big enough force over there, they might have been able to put, build a shield wall sort of and
On the northern
get that
side?
gate
Oh,
open.
you mean on the
No, on the
on the
southern,
southern
yeah, on
side?
the southern side and get through and then, try and protect those who are getting
Yeah,
through the
and
gate.
then lift the gate and prop it open. Uh,
I guess.
break the
Yeah,
mechanism in the open position. I'm guessing the mechanism is designed not to get stuck in the open position, though.
you would
If
think.
I was
Yes,
designing
you would think.
a gate for a wall that you built 700 feet high for a reason, you would
Right.
err on the side of not being able to prop the door open.
I could definitely see
Mhm.
that. Yes.
So how do the wildlings stand now? I mean, this was Mance's big plan. It feels like it's fallen flat. Obviously, the Night's Watch remains horribly depleted. The
More
wildlings
so than
can send
before.
more people over the wall whenever they feel like, it seems. If you see a Night's Watch
Yeah.
brother who's not moving, he's probably not real.
If he doesn't pick his nose or scratch his butt, he's probably made of straw.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's still a large force on that northern side,
Right.
and they know how depleted, because of Jon's intel, they know how depleted the southern side is. So could they try and force their way through, even though the gate has, isn't being opened for them
Yeah.
from, friends on the inside? And as we'll see in background, it's possible for a big enough force to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They stopped this initial charge, this plan where the Thenns were going to open the gate for the folks on the northern side to come through. That has been thwarted, but I don't know that it's the end
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
uh, all the issues that they're going to face. And Donald Noy, he's technically not in charge. Remember, Sir Winton Stout was left in
Right.
charge, but Winton Stout is elderly and apparently forgot that he was put in charge. So Donald Noy has been the one kind of leading this. He's the default Lord Commander here at this tower. At Castle Black, and he possibly saved the day here with his leadership and planning. Him and I'm guessing Maester Aemon and I don't even know who else. I'm not sure who else is left that would have this level of planning available to them. But we don't know for sure if Donald Noy survived, but it seemed like he did. Jon didn't see him die or anything, so we don't know. But if he survived, might he be a possible candidate for the next Lord Commander? He certainly has the voice for it.
Yeah.
We learned that.
But he would struggle in a
He
show of
saved the
hands.
day.
Uh,
Oh goodness. He has the respect of the men, and he saved Castle Black and the realm here. So if they survive all this, he might be a possible candidate to
yeah, I agree.
replace
I agree. It's a good point.
Jeor
I
Mormont.
hadn't thought of it, but I do agree it's a good point. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the impact of Ygritte's death on Jon. I mean, like, whenever you lose your first love, it's always hard, but typically they don't die in your arms.
Right, mine was to another boy in ninth grade. So
Hard enough, I'm sure. If he died in your arms, you'd have been fine with that. You'd have dropped him
yeah,
halfway through.
yeah. This is it's tough. I mean, Jon's lost his father, his mentor in Jeor Mormont. He thinks his younger brothers are dead. Ghost seems to be lost. Ghost hasn't showed
That's
up yet.
right, no ghost, yeah.
And now Ygritte dies. So, I mean, if we think about it logically, there's no obvious future for him and Ygritte.
No.
You know, maybe if she had come through unscathed, he could have faked his death in this battle, and they could have bought some brown cloaks in Molestown. I hear
Right.
there's a good place there for that, and then ran off with her, I guess, possibly. But in reality, there was no good ending for them, at least together.
Yeah.
You know.
And taking the glass half full thing, she was the last witness to his truly breaking his vows.
Oh, right. Yes, right. We had wondered when he dreamed of Ygritte at the end of the last chapter, and we wondered if maybe she was pregnant. He said, I won't father a bastard, and she says,
You know
nothing,
nothing.
Jon
Ah,
Snow,
yeah.
and melted into uh, the pool. We wondered if that possibly meant she was pregnant, but I guess we'll never know
Yeah.
now.
It doesn't matter very much now.
No, no. But that it's similar to Sam and Gilly, with no clear possible future between the two of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, true. All right, to background. Do you have some? You tantalized that you did.
It'd be really weird if I was like, nope,
Nope, not
nothing.
today.
Nothing this week. So yeah, Jon recalls Benjen explaining why the Night's Watch castles don't have walls aside from the wall on the northern side. He explained that although most of the 997 Lords Commander of the Night's Watch were good, honorable men, some were not. Regarding those that weren't the upstanding type, Benjen said it's because of them that the castles are indefensible on the southern side. He gave examples of some of the problematic Lord Commanders, including some castle commanders. One such example was 600 years ago, when the commanders of the Night Fort and Snowgate went to war against each other, and the Lord Commander rode to stop it, but then the men decided to join forces and killed the Lord Commander. The Stark in Winterfell had to step in and end the situation, which he did easily because the castles weren't defensible. And so we've talked about the Night Fort before. It's the huge former headquarters of the Night's Watch. So let's look at Snowgate. The name Snowgate is actually an outdated name for the castle because back in 58 AC, when good Queen Alysanne Targaryen and her dragon Silverwing visited the wall, she provided jewels to pay for the construction of a new castle, Deep Lake. To honor the queen for her contribution to the Night's Watch, Lord Commander Lothar Burley renamed Snowgate to Queensgate.
Okay.
The castle is actually a neighbor of Castle Black. It's located just to the west, nestled between it and Deep Lake. And Queensgate was also the location of another wildling uprising. In 133 AC, a wildling raider named Silas the Grim led 3,000 free folk against the wall, overwhelming the brothers at Queensgate. The wildlings then began spreading out across the Gift, and Lord Cragen Stark had to lead a force to hunt down and end the wildling invasion.
That's how they always end, with a Stark just kicking butt.
It is, except for now when they don't have a
Well,
Stark to kick butt.
in my mind, Jon counts as well.
I agree. I'm not sure he can rouse an army from
True.
Winterfell, but
He has to do it all single-handedly. Comparison with the television show, I will say there is an unbelievable gap between Jon escaping the wildlings and this battle at Castle Black. It was a full season. It was 10 episodes between those two events.
Wow.
Uh-huh. I
Wow,
eventually
that's
gave up
surprising.
and had to Google which episode does Ygritte die in. Uh,
Google knows all.
it does make sense because Jon's raiding party, again, as I mentioned, is too small to threaten Castle Black. In the TV show, it's it's pushed later to allow more wildlings to get across the wall, and so the whole thing is just delayed. It's a bigger battle, and there's lots of spoilers because, of course, Jon is on the wall with people who he wasn't on the wall with in the book, and I'm not sure that we know for a fact in the book that these people are going to be reconciled. So, got to be careful about what I
Okay.
say. Um,
All
but
right.
to add to the whole pathos, Ygritte gets Jon in her sights. She has an arrow trained on him, and he's just about to loose when a young lad called Ollie, who's taking the expanded part of Saturn, really, kills her. She dies in Jon's arms, as in the book. But Ollie's backstory said, I mentioned this, that his father is killed by Ygritte south of the wall, and he's only
Right.
allowed to live to take news of the wildlings to Castle Black in the hope of drawing them out of the castle, which is a bit more defended in the TV show. I thought it was pretty well defended, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it was a more even fight.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Good stuff. I'm glad you scanned a whole season
Yeah.
for
I mean,
just for us.
she shoots him at Queen's Crown in season 3, episode 9, and this battle is season 4, episode 9.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's like a whole
A whole
year as
year went
far
by,
as,
yeah.
real time
Yeah.
goes.
Pedantry Corner, I mean, look, I know poor decisions aren't pedantry, but the wildlings burning Molestown just tipped their hand that they were on their way. Uh, and also, this is not just the Night's Watch, but this is the whole Seven Kingdoms. You can't make these castles so vulnerable from the south. It's a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, because this type of thing can
Yeah,
happen.
it's not that.
They can overrun one gate, and then, although I guess if they decided to like hunker down in Queen's Crown and it had a wall, maybe they could make a stand there or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yes, I take your point.
News and notes.
It's here.
It's here.
It's
The
here
time has
this
come.
week. Our 200th episode celebration is this week. Yes, we'll be hosting a watch party live on Discord. We will record Brand 4 live in front of the congregated masses. And if all goes smoothly, we hope to do some sort of interaction with you all afterward. We'll kind of just we'll play it by
I
ear.
mean,
We got some ideas,
we're
We'll
social. We'll talk.
we'll do some things. A reminder: the date and time: Thursday, July 20th, 2023. If you're listening in the future, I apologize you've missed this one, but hopefully you can catch our 300th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, U.S. Canada. And you're going to want to join the Discord community now if you haven't already, because that's how you can celebrate along with us.
You just made me realize that we won't hit 300 until 2025. Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
know. That's a frightening thought.
Where will we be in the books by then?
I don't know, but we still got 500 pages of this one to go.
Yeah, people used to ask, they do still sometimes, what are you going to do
Yeah, right.
when you run out of books? And I'm like,
Retire.
retire, yeah. Move to Florida. Yeah.
All right, I'm looking forward to it, Mackelly. I think it's going to be really fun.
I hope so.
Uh,
I just
uh,
hope all the technical
yeah,
things
yeah.
work
I
out.
honestly think
That's
it's
the
going to
one
be a
thing that could
one-time
ruin it.
deal because I think honestly people will be like, I mean, it's kind of nice to see how you guys the process, but I ain't watching that again.
Way to upsell, way to upsell our event.
I had no idea how much editing went into fixing up this hot mess.
Jenny does.
Jenny does. But I told Jenny when she recorded it with us, we were way better than me and you are. Me and you just go off topic all the time.
Yeah, I think we've had about 10 minutes worth of outtakes already in this
All right,
episode.
laser focus. Let's conclude. So
All right.
Jon ultimately here was successful. I mean, he did sort of everything that was asked of him by Corin Halfhand. He reported back
Yeah,
that they didn't get the horn to blow down the wall, and
right.
he prevented the sabotage and uh, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Attack?
Well, I mean the attack happened, but he prevented the fall of Castle Black to the
Oh,
wildlings.
yes. The
Uh,
fall of Castle Black. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. He could give himself a pat on the back.
yeah.
He did
And
good.
perhaps now that Rast is dead, some of the Night's Watch brothers will too.
Right. Yes. And speaking of the Night's Watch brothers and the moles, they fought pretty admirably, I would say.
Yes, I would say so.
You, you could certainly see how discipline triumphs over numbers. The the Night's Watch had a plan, they stuck to it, they executed it, and they won the battle despite being heavily outnumbered. Now, they did have home field advantage, and that is not
Yeah,
nothing.
and it's
So,
not completely indefensible. They've got towers, they've got high positions. It's not nothing to have
yes.
those things.
Right. The wildlings possibly got distracted by Mole's Town, possibly got sucked into the trap on the stairs versus going to the prize, which was the gate.
Yeah,
Uh, and I will say, I thought about this several times while I was reading, especially the battle parts. Despite there being many unsavory types in the the Night's Watch. You could see the bond shared between the brothers here. Many stood shoulder to shoulder and faced the foe together, dying with honor. There was one bit where three of them lined up shoulder to shoulder on the stairs, swords out,
Yeah.
ready to face the horde of Thenns. They just got washed right over, but they stood in there.
Yeah. All true. And Jon has lost his first love, and he will mourn for her forever, I think. And so he should.
Yeah.
She was special and
Right.
special to him. So,
Yeah.
but hopefully
These
it's not.
Stark kids.
Hopefully it's not going to cripple his soul.
Yeah, these Stark kids, they just continue to have loved ones stripped away.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, there was no real future for them in their current circumstance. But, I think, like you just said, I think losing Ygritte will shape Jon as a person for the rest of his life. Losing her in the way that he did.
You've got to imagine that the first time the thought, well, that's solved a problem for me, crosses his mind, he will feel very guilty about it.
Yes, I think he might. I agree.
All right, so next week is Bran, and it'll be live. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Bran and company, they make it to that big ice block that cuts across the continent.
Oh, exciting.
Yes.
Might we get a reunion for our 200th?
I don't know, maybe. Wouldn't that be special?
Would be. All right. Well, there's 4 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. You could buy some merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level, and there's lots of good benefits if you do. Or you could just donate directly to us through our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And you want more interaction with us, keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments? Well, check us out on our social media accounts. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. And someone will say what was lost can never be saved. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a